Hey, welcome to Impact Marriage with Nick and Leslie Edwards. So glad that you've chosen to join us another week, another episode. Just continue to move forward.
Absolutely. Episode 9. We're excited to come to you today, talk about some things. Just one of the things that Nick and I talked about, that another issue that comes up with couples so often that we just want to hit. It's right now, it's coming up, it's at the time, is just finances and how you do that as a couple.
No one ever argues about finances.
No one fights over money.
So, one of the things that we have talked about and what it means and how do we look at money and all these things. And really it's about how does it control you or how do you control it?
Yeah.
And, we've gone on some trips lately. We've been to Austin. We got Corpus here in a couple weeks. Next week is spring break.
Yes.
Hopefully that you're planning to do something with your kids and you've planned accordingly for that. And so we're taking our 2 youngest kids skiing for the first time. We're going to Colorado and just what that's going to be. And the mountain's full of snow and we're excited about that. I'm actually going to tell them a story.
Oh, yeah.
And so maybe we'll let y'all in on the story of the eagle and what that was. And and so really excited about it. But we began thinking and planning for this trip months ago.
Yeah.
And now at the last moment, we're buying Amazon stuff to make sure we're ready for the trip.
Yes, absolutely. You can only plan so much. And then you're like, oh, we need this. We might need this. We might need this. And it's kind of, unfortunately, how your finances go if you're not intentional with them and thinking through. You have to be so purposeful in everything that you're doing with your finances. So it's such an important topic. Excited to kind of get into it and look at what that means for couples.
I teach this in business coaching that you really have 2 great assets. You have time and you have money. And both of those things can either be to your greatest advantage or they can destroy you.
Yeah.
And, we talked about it last week with being intentional with your time and on your calendar, and you get to choose the things that are the priorities in your life. And if you don't choose what's the priorities of your life will be full of all kinds of junk.
It's going to always feel chaotic.
Always chaotic. Mm-hmm. And the same way is true about your finances.
Absolutely.
If you don't decide where the finances go, the finances will just be gone.
Correct. And I think there's this, like, everybody has the same amount of minutes in a day. So you think that. And I think there's this misnomer that if you have more money, you don't struggle with money as much. Oh. But that's not true from what we've experienced with anybody. Whether you have a tighter budget, whether you have a bigger budget, if you're not intentional with it, you're going to struggle with money regardless of what it is.
So I think we overcomplicate money in so many different ways. And when really it comes down to just 2 parts. There's just 2 parts of money. There's income and outflow.
In and out.
And if you spend more out than what you bring in, you've got problems.
You got an issue.
And the goal is that less goes out than what we make. And that way we have a surplus. Correct. We're able to use that as a blessing to be able to bless others. I think that's the biggest thing that we want you to hear is that your finances are God's blessing to you in order that you would be a steward of those things so that you can bless others.
Yeah.
One of the things we've worked to is how do we continue to find ways to bless others? How does this ministry find ways to bless others? So many of you have began giving and supporting this ministry. We're so grateful. Yeah. Here's a link. If you want to be able to support this, we want to be able to use that to be able to bless others. And you may go, I don't know how to use our finances to bless others. Well, we've paid for marriage counseling this last year. We have paid for some individual counseling. Yep. We have blessed pastors to have dinners with their wife. We've sent pastors on retreats.
On mission trip. We've supported some mission trips.
Supported mission trips to Ghana and Guatemala. And other places. We've supported local missions. We've supported being able to help brand new churches launch. Yeah. All because we realized none of it belongs to us.
We were intentional. We wanted to use the money for a purpose higher than what we are. We wanted it to be for purposes that push the name of God everywhere that people go.
Okay, so I got a story about your assets, okay?
Okay.
So be a little patient with me on this, all right?
I don't know where you're going.
Yeah, so you have 2 assets, time and your money.
Okay.
And so I heard this story. It's not a great marriage story, okay? Just go with me, okay?
All right.
So both your money and your time work like a wife or a mistress.
Okay.
If you don't take care of them, they can both either love you, leave you, or kill you.
Okay.
And so you have to understand where you want to invest your time, your money, your energy, and you have to make sure, if not, it will go to someone that you do not want to give it to.
Yeah, that's true.
And so how do we be wise about our money? And I think that's the biggest thing for me. Neither one of us really had parents that taught us anything about money. I would bet the average person, other than if you went through a financial peace university, a simple class like that, you know very little about money and how to deal with it and how it works. We're actually paying our kids right now to read
we are.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And because I'd read it years ago, and I said, hey, let's listen to this together. And you said, this is so good. Why did no one ever teach us this? Just a different mindset about how money works.
Yeah. That you want to, I think that's one of the things that's been the greatest for us is, when we first started, it was just, we got to pay bills, we got to pay bills, we got to pay bills. But slowly changing our mindset behind money, that it's not just about paying bills and getting by, that it's about having a kingdom mindset with our money. And I know one of the things that we have both been convicted of is the verse in Scripture that says, a wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children.
Yeah, Proverbs 13:22.
Are we being so generous with our money that God would want to bless us in ways that allows us to use it more for his glory?
So when I was in the police department, my partner, Josh Forner, and we were close. We worked every day. You sit in a squad car every day with someone, you get to know them, you get to know about their life. Well, not only did we work 8-hour shifts together, we would go work extra jobs and do security jobs at a club or apartments or whatever else.
Such good money.
It was good money.
It was such good money.
So me and Josh are sitting in my truck one day in this apartment complex, and we had been sitting there for a while. We go to 7-Eleven to get a drink, and the lotto was like $300 million. And Josh goes, hey, give me $5. I didn't think anything about it. I opened up my center console of my truck. I always have some cash laying there. I give him $5, whatever, Josh. It doesn't matter. That didn't even matter.
It didn't matter what he asked for.
Yeah. And so he goes in and he says, all right, we're not going to look at these numbers till tomorrow. So he bought 10 tickets. We put them in my truck, and he gets in the squad car the next morning and goes, hey, let's go get the tickets. And I said, we didn't win. And he goes, what do you mean we didn't win? Did you already look at them?
He thought you cheated. He thought you'd already looked at them.
Did you really already look at these? And I said, no. He goes, well, how do you know we didn't win? And I said, because God doesn't trust me with that.
Wow.
God does not trust me to win $300 million in a lotto.
Wow.
So if he doesn't trust me, I remember even starting to pray at that point, God, will you put it upon my heart to give me wisdom and understanding that I could be a good steward, that I could be wise with what you give me, that I would use it to bless others. I'm not sure if we're worthy to be trusted with $300 million. But
it's a great analogy. Are you really trustworthy with that much? It reminds me of the verse in Scripture that says, if you've been faithful with a little, you will be entrusted with a lot. And just, are we being faithful with whatever number God gives us for the month? God has blessed us both with jobs, wherever you're at, are you being faithful with the number that you've given every month?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we need to get past that. So if this is zero, we think that God just wants to get us out of debt and get us back to level zero.
That zero's the goal.
Whether that's spiritually, that's in joy, that's in happiness, it's in mental health or whatever, that the goal is just to get from -10 to 0. But we don't have a God who just takes us out of the depths. We have a God who says, I'm a God of abundance and I can do abundantly more. Why don't you believe that I can do abundantly more in you?
Yeah.
And so do you pray for wisdom, understanding, insight, favor? Do you pray for counsel and knowledge and might, the things that are this part of the Spirit of the Lord? Do you pray for those? And do you pray that God would give you wisdom to be good stewards of all that he gives you, and that you would be trustworthy to do even more?
Yeah. That's a great prayer to pray. Are we really trustworthy with our finances?
Yeah.
So what does that look like practically for couples, or in your marriage, in your relationship? What does that look like practically to be a good steward of your money?
Well, I think it starts off with priorities.
Okay.
What is
the same as your time, right?
Yeah,
it's what your priority. They've always said you can tell a person's priorities by their calendar and also their checkbook. Like, what is it? I don't think people do checkbooks anymore, but their Google sheet, their spreadsheet, their bank account.
And it really does come down to priorities. And we have a God who is a God of priorities. From the very beginning, he says, I have to be first. You can put no one in front of me.
Yeah.
That nothing can come before God. And the reason that nothing can come before God is if God put anything in front of himself and God honored anything more than he valued himself, it would be idolatry. That nothing is worthy to be above God.
That's good.
So if God put anything above himself, God would be committing adultery. So it's against his very character. And so the idea of a tithe and the idea of giving is about giving of your first fruits, giving of your very first, because God is first in my life.
It helps you realize it's not yours. You've been entrusted with it. Like it just helps frame your mindset in it. Like we do electronic banking, and it's important to us that right as it comes out, we have it. Like as an educator, I get paid once a month, and that's on the 25th. And so it is like the 25th, like it comes out the same day that I get paid. That's important to us because it's our first fruits. This is what we have. This is what we're giving.
So this is where I think it's important that you have this principle, but you don't have to be legalistic about it. I actually tithe the last day of the month.
Okay.
Off my business, and the way it works is I never really know how much I'm making every month. Have different clients, different speaking engagements. Every month looks completely different. So at the end of the month, the last day of the month, I give my tithe and my offering.
That's an interesting way.
But it's because it's still the first fruits.
Gotcha.
That percentage, that priority is still there. So whether you do it twice a month because you get paid twice a month, you do it every week. If you get paid every week, I would tell you need to give every week.
Absolutely.
If you get paid every week, every other week, I would say that's how you need to schedule it.
Yeah.
Because it has to be a priority.
That's right.
It has to be a choice that, God, I choose to give to you.
Yeah.
So I know people always ask, well, 10% of where I am today feels like a huge leap.
If they're not giving anything, it seems like a big jump.
So I always want to say, your tithe and your offering is a couple things. First of all, it's a non-negotiable with God.
Yeah.
But I would tell you, grow. Get started. See how God blesses when you choose to make him a priority.
Yeah.
And if you have to start smaller and it's 2% and 5% and 7%, get started and start growing.
Yeah.
Our prayer changes over time. Our faith changes over time. Our understanding of scripture changes over time. Our giving should do as well.
And it's the same thing. If you've always given 10% and you've only ever given 10% and you've never pushed yourself to give past your tithe, in the same way in that's an area of growth for people is push yourself. See what you can give to God. It's his to begin with.
And if you give, he tells us in Malachi, test me and see if I do not open up the storehouses of heaven.
Isn't that the only place where God says test me is when it's talking about giving and the tithing? And
absolutely. So James 1 tells us this promise, if you pray for wisdom, I will give it.
Yeah.
Malachi tells us, test me with your finances and give to me and see if I do not bless.
I do. Yeah.
And so we need to begin to believe and not believe just that, if I give, then God's going to get me back to zero.
Yeah.
Know that God's going to do abundantly more.
Yeah. And I know we've seen that come to play so many times in our lives, just going, I'm not sure what this is going to look like. That there was a time that you didn't have a job and I was teaching and that was it. That was our income for, a young family with a kid and one on the way.
And you're a third or fourth year teacher.
Yeah. And just being faithful with that. And I know that is one thing that I always saw my parents doing was I remember my dad talking about, this was back when you had the checkbooks. And I remember my dad taking a check every week to church or occasionally and I remember asking, what is that? And he said, well, this is what we're giving back to God. And so that was something, thankfully, there's a lot of things that I struggle with. Giving a tithe has never been one of those things because even in college, I can remember working when I was at A&M, I worked in the athletic department. And so I made like a whopping $5 an hour for my 15 hours a week, right? So I was barely making enough, but it was such a joy to be able to give to, I was part of the breakaway ministry that was there at A&M, and being able to give to that ministry that had blessed me was such a rewarding and not like I'm proud of me, but just an honor that God would allow me to give back to him.
It's that God would put it upon my heart to start this. And you're going, this doesn't make a difference. It does not make a difference for the budget of the ministry. What it makes a difference for is for your heart.
Absolutely.
And how you see God, what you believe about God. And so I don't know if we said this last week, but it's about faith.
Yeah.
And faith is believing God is who he says he is, and he will do what he says he will do. So do we have faith? Do we believe that God is who he says he is, and he will do what he says he will do? Is he a God of his principles, a God of his word? Is he trustworthy? And that's really what our finances is about, the faith that God will do these things.
It's really good.
So we've talked about this before.
Yes.
Remember when we'd been married 4 or 5 years, and we had doubled our amount of money we were making. I was a youth pastor making pennies. You went from a first-year teacher to a fourth-year teacher.
Yeah. And
just looking at our finances and going, we don't have an extra dime.
We don't have any more money at the end of the month than we did when we were making a whole lot less. I remember having this conversation and just...
And do you remember the fight?
I remember the fight. I remember it did not go well.
And the fight was that we looked at our finances and went, we've spent $300 on Wendy's and Sonic and junk this month, and we don't have the money to do stupid stuff like that.
Which I think is a temptation as you make more money. You're like, oh, we have cushion. We don't have to be as intentional with it. You have to be very intentional with where every penny is going.
So are you a good steward? Does God trust you with those things? Are you making wise decisions? And the wise decisions have to be based upon what do you want for your future?
Yeah.
And if
that was really good for us.
Every penny today, and you don't have any for tomorrow, then that's what you get.
Yeah. And so, it causes stress, and it causes all of that is why couples fight about it, is because it is so stressful, and it is important what you're doing with your finances, and it is your future, and it is what you can do, what you can't do. And if you want to be able to do the perks, you have to prioritize giving first, and then being intentional with what's left over. You have to prioritize what are your wants, what are my wants, what do we need, what's play money.
What do we want for our future?
Right.
Not just what do we want for today. And so then we went through that season. Years later, we had some people in our community group, Darren and Gail. They were going through Ramsey Financial, and we made fun of them. Said, "Come on, you guys want to?"
They had their envelopes or little cash.
Go to Starbucks with us tonight, and then realized the wisdom that they had and the things that they were going through. And I remember we paid off $50,000.
We did
in 2 years.
We did
working every bit of extra overtime I could. We paid off $50,000 of car loans, student debt, a little bit of credit card, in order that we could get rid of all of it. And do you remember the timing of this?
Oh, I vividly remember the perfect timing of it.
What did God do?
Yeah, God did. You were a police officer at the time, working the extra jobs that we had talked about, and we were using all of that money just to crank out and just to get debt free. And the month that we paid off the very last payment on our car note was the day you accepted the position at the church, and we're going to have to take a significant pay cut.
Yeah, that same month that we paid off that last bit of debt, the only thing we owed at that point was the house. God opened up a door for ministry.
Yeah.
And I think we take it for granted that our finances don't matter to God. And he says, I want to do something more 100%. To you and through you, but you are a slave to the lender and they own you. Instead of understanding that God has given us freedom in Christ, instead of being a slave to some debt.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So one of the things we've taught through this, and we just want to be able to share with you a few things that we've learned and what we've learned through the process. Yeah. And we realize, let's make things easy.
It's simple always makes it easier. If it's complicated,
we're less likely to do it.
You're less likely to keep it up with it. Absolutely.
So how do we make an easy budget? How do we make a very clear budget to be able to give us some wisdom so we can go, this is what we want to do for our future?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we just wanted to show you what a little bit of a budget would look like. And so we've created this budget. You can email info@impact320.org. We will send you a free link to be able to create your own. That the formulas are already built into this. And so what we've done is on this left column, we've just said, okay, here's what's due every single month.
Yeah.
Then on the right column is his income, her income, monthly bills, weekly, one time, those things.
The things that your HOA fees, just a weird once a year kind of, like for us, it's tires. Amazon Prime or absolutely something that comes up.
Yeah. Costco membership.
Yeah.
And all that, not just the Costco bill. That's a whole different
Costco,
episode.
that's a different, woo, yeah.
And so what you realize is on here is we've gone through here and we've tried to list as many things as possible.
That's the hard part of it, is you have to be intentional about listing out every single thing that you're paying.
Yeah. So over here on the right, income, he makes this, she makes this, and then all these bills. And this automatically calculates that based upon his and her income combined, what the tithe is going to be. It's already set, 10% done.
Yeah.
So that it's first thing. Then listing out. And these probably could be in a little bit better order, but your mortgage, your electric bill, life insurance, car payment, truck payment, water, American Express, health insurance, all these things. Dang, AT&T gets you for so much every single month.
AT&T. And okay, I'm just going to be totally honest, totally transparent. You know, it's crazy. You know what one of our biggest expenses outside of our house is? We're about to have 3 teenage drivers, young adult drivers. Our car insurance bill is off the charts expensive. It's crazy. Like,
if you're looking for new car insurance, home insurance, business insurance, send me a message and I will give you a few recommendations.
Yeah, but it's crazy, the things, but you've got to be able to put them out there and know this is how much they are. So me and doing it like this, I'm an alphabetical girl. I like to put them in alphabetical order because I go back and mark them as their, I'm the one that does the finances in our family, but I go back and mark them like when they're paid. And
so this is one that you have we have ours, but I was just going through trying to make this to be able to give it to people as I meet with them. And just making sure that every single thing is on there.
Yep.
Your AppleCare, your Netflix, your Peacock, your Apple One, your Spotify, all of these things, and they just add up.
They do. They really do. And if you're just looking at them single line, you're like, oh, it's not a big deal. But when you put it together, you're like, whoa, that is cutting into the margin that we have.
It adds up quick.
Yeah.
And so these are just monthly bills.
Correct.
These aren't even anything extra. So then you have this weekly section and his lunch, her lunch, groceries. Goodness gracious, the groceries just get you gas, blow money.
Yeah.
A little bit of date night money. Do you plan for that? And both people need to have a little bit of blow money. That if you get $20 a week and I get $20 a week, I can save that $20 for the next year and go buy me something for $1,000.
That's right.
Or I can go buy Red Bulls every day.
That's exactly right.
Right? You can go
it feeds my coffee addiction. But, I can make the choice with that, what I want.
The deal in this is you have to be able to communicate these things.
Yeah.
And if the joke in your marriage is, oh, goodness, here we go, she's going to Target again.
Yeah.
Or, oh, my gosh, let's go to Costco and see if we can spend under $500.
Oh, I was on a Facebook feed where that came up. How much do you spend at Costco when you go? Like, it was an interesting conversation.
I usually just go over and get pizza and a drink while you pay because I don't even want to say.
You just go get you some pizza because that is a good thing that Costco does well.
But what a foolish mindset. Not that we're trying to do that.
I get what you're saying.
But what a foolish mindset. We always make a joke. Oh, you spend too much money on golf.
Yeah.
You spend too much money on Target. Oh my gosh, how much did you And we make these little jab jokes, but they're really stress moments.
Yeah. And also, I want to take a moment. Can you pull over like the his and hers?
Yes.
So obviously this is a couple that they both work and they both make the same amount. Okay. So
I just did it to make it simple.
Correct. You're just making it simple. But it's very important to be unified in this, is that we are one. It's really good. And you have to be very careful. It's not your money, my money. I'll give you, it's not a yours and mine. It is our money. And that's for the husband that has a stay-at-home mom. Like if you're a stay-at-home mom, it shouldn't be like, well, I have money and I'm giving you an allowance. This is our money and what we're agreeing on.
Allowance, but it's not based upon what
we contribute
to
them. That's exactly right. It is our money and this is what we've agreed upon. But the same is true if the wife is the one that is making more money. She doesn't get to use that as I make more money, so I can go to Target and buy these $300 outfits. And you have to agree on what are priorities together. I think that's really a foothold for Satan if you're trying to do, well, I have this money and you have this money and we're going to keep them separate. Like, you have to come at it as a unified front, or else you're going to see each other as the enemy. That has been a trap for us in the past. It's been me against you, not us against our finances, and trying to be intentional about it. So
we're not at war with each other. We're not at war against our finances. We're going, how can God take what we're doing now, bless it 100 times,
absolutely,
in order that we would be good stewards and he would do more things through us?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the goal, that this isn't something we're afraid of to talk about. You got to talk about sex. You got to talk about finances. You got to talk about the in-laws. You've got to talk about all these things, or you will have problems because you can't just allow them to live in the dark.
No, because then it becomes the bigger issue. And if you don't know how to communicate about it when you're working through it, you definitely don't know how to communicate through it when it's an issue and when we don't have enough and we're negative. You got to learn to communicate about how you want to spend it, not just about that there's not enough to go around.
Here's what I want people to hear. Take the initiative to have the conversation and bring it up to your spouse. Absolutely. And if you are the person, that's you, that handles this, you need to hear a couple things. Yeah. Number one, it's not fully on you. Yeah. Just because you are the one that's keeping the spreadsheet. Give yourself some grace to not think this full weight is on you. You have to be able to communicate. It's good. The other thing I would say is you can't be defensive on it. So it's not your full weight, and you don't have to be defensive because you don't own it. Right. Y'all have to own it together. Yeah. That's a great, great word. I know that's been something that we've kind of struggled with in the past I feel responsible for it. I'm the one that's keeping the spreadsheet and it's not working out right. And just being able to talk and communicate about it. Create a spreadsheet. If you want a link, it's got formulas in here. It makes it easy for you. And then what we do is down at the bottom, we just start a new month. I don't know if it'll show it. Yeah. No, maybe not. We have a year spreadsheet, and at the bottom, I just clone it to the next month. And so it becomes a tab. Here's January, here's February, which one helps with our taxes. That's where I go back and get all our tax information from. But it's just a reminder to see where you are and what you're doing. And I get inflation is kind of what it is, but it's so interesting. Like, I have all the years that we've done these, so I can go back many, many, many years and just look to see, gosh, we were living off of this much margin every month, and we're fine and made it. And so what is it that we're spending now that is not being faithful and frugal with our money to be able to give the most that we possibly can? And, one of our goals is not just to be the 10%. Right. But that percentage continues to grow and grow. And not the amount, but the percent. Right. Absolutely. And so as the percent grows, that we can trust God with greater things. We've had this conversation with a few couples. I've had it with business owners, and one business owner told me, actually two different. Now that I think of it, two different business owners said they sat down with their finance person, their tax person, and the finance person told them, "You give too much to God. You give too much." Listen. Yeah. Fire that CPA. That's fire not your that guy. Bookkeeper. Fire that tax person, because they don't have a kingdom mindset. That's right. And you cannot outgive God. He says, "Test me." And so, if that person is not aligned really with your same values, what you believe, you got to find somebody different. Yeah, that's a great point. And so, continue to grow in your percentage. One of our goals is that we really want to get to 50% tithers. Yeah. Can we get that? We give away 50% of all that God gives us. Yeah. And why not? Why not? Why not? Because it's not about what we're trying to live and how we're trying to do. It's about we're trying to give and be kingdom-minded. And when you do that, I believe that God will do abundantly more. He will open up the storehouses of heaven and pour upon you riches that you cannot imagine. Absolutely. And you just start. Just start where you're at. It may not be pretty. It may not, like the first time we put it down on paper, it was not pretty. And that's okay. Just start where you're at, start working it out, and reach out if you need help. I want to show one more thing on this. Okay. This graph real quick, and then we'll close up. When you look at all these numbers and they add up, and then you come over here to this column, and you see hers monthly, it adds up and goes, here's what you have left.
Oops, we got to go backwards.
Something's not right.
We got to go back and revise.
And that's where you have to create your priorities.
Yep.
And it's not going, well, maybe we won't do our tithe this month. Maybe you need to really think about what you eat out, what you buy your kids. Do your kids need this, or do you just want to keep up with the Joneses?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time we went without cable because that was something that we were willing to cut and do. You have to decide together what is our future goals and what is it that we can do without, because we want to make sure that we're giving.
Hey, if you're struggling with this and you want some help in this conversation, not only would we love to be able to send you the spreadsheet, but we would love to be able to help you in the conversation. Yeah. We know these can be volatile conversations. And so we don't have all the financial answers. We just have taken steps to be able to get better.
Yeah.
Better is always better. We're taking steps to get better. And if we can help you through this process, we would love to be able to do so.
Absolutely.
So you can email info@impact320.org. You can send us a message on Facebook or one of the other social media platforms. And we would love to be able to help you, connect, to be able to grow, to make your marriage better.
Because better is always better.
Have a great week. We'll see you next week.